Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about a simple shift, one that has the power to change the way we work, the way we grow, and the way we build our future. We've been taught to chase goals. We're told to aim high, write it down, visualize it, and go after it with everything we've got. But often, even after all the excitement, the goal still feels distant, and when motivation fades, the target begins to feel heavier than the day we set it. Why? Because goals are outcomes. Systems, however, are behaviors. A goal says run a marathon. A system says train 5 days a week. A goal says start a business. A system says speak to 3 potential customers every day. A goal says become healthier. A system says prepare nutritious meals every morning. Systems are the actions that shape who we are becoming, not just what we want to achieve. And here's the truth. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. When we focus only on goals, we create pressure. When we build systems, we create progress. Goals can create anxiety because they constantly remind us of where we are not. Systems give us confidence because they remind us of what we can do today. And education teaches us this principle better than anything else. Students who chase grades often feel overwhelmed. Students who build systems, consistent study habits, curiosity, driven learning, daily review, excel naturally because success becomes a byproduct of the process. Systems transform identity. You don't just achieve success, you become someone capable of sustaining it. When you design a system, you design a lifestyle, and lifestyles last longer than motivation. So ask yourself, what daily action can move you closer to who you want to be? What habits reinforce your values? What routines reflect your future, not your past? Because when your systems are strong, the results take care of themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, the question isn't what goal do you want? The real question is, what system will you build to make that goal inevitable? While goals give us something to aim at, systems determine whether we move toward that aim with reliability. Goals are usually exciting, but their excitement is temporary. Systems, however, are the steady engine behind every meaningful result. When you rely on goals alone, progress becomes inconsistent because goals depend heavily on motivation, which naturally rises and falls. Systems depend on structure, and structure is dependable. A well-designed system works whether you feel inspired or not, and that consistency becomes the source of long-term achievement. To understand this more deeply, it helps to see how goals behave in the real world. A goal functions like a snapshot of the future, one picture, one moment, one desired outcome. It tells you where you want to be, not how to get there. The moment you set a goal, you also create a gap between your current state and your future state. That gap can be motivating, but it can also create pressure, self-doubt, and frustration. You might find yourself constantly measuring where you are against where you wish you could be, which can make progress feel inadequate even when you're moving forward. Systems replace this tension with direction. A system breaks the distance into repeatable steps, turning the abstract desire into a practical path. Instead of asking, how far am I from my goal? Systems teach you to ask, what action am I taking today? That one shift changes everything because daily action is within your control, while the outcome is not. Systems bring focus to what you can do consistently, not what you can achieve eventually. Another important distinction is that systems produce momentum. Goals often create a start-stop pattern. You start strong, push hard, reach the goal, and then suddenly stop because the target is no longer there. This is why so many people achieve a milestone and then lose the progress they fought to gain. A student studies intensely for an exam, earns a high grade, and stops studying. An individual trains aggressively for a race, completes it, and stops exercising. A professional works tirelessly to earn a promotion, gets it, and then struggles to maintain performance. The goal was achieved, but the system was abandoned. Systems prevent this cycle because they don't end. They form habits, routines, and methods that create continuity. When you build a system around daily reading, you don't stop once you finish one book. The system naturally carries you into the next one. When you build a system for consistent saving, you don't stop after hitting a financial target. The system continues building security and opportunity. Systems make progress sustainable because progress becomes a byproduct, not a one-time event. Consistency is also the foundation of compound growth. Small, repeated behaviors create disproportionately large results over time, but this only happens with regularity. If you read 10 pages a day, practice a skill for 20 minutes daily, or improve your product by one small enhancement each week, the cumulative effect becomes transformative. Goals rarely support compound growth because most goals encourage a burst of effort followed by inactivity. Systems, on the other hand, make the activity itself the priority, ensuring that growth accumulates quietly in the background. Systems also reduce the emotional burden of progress. When you focus solely on goals, every day feels like a success or a failure depending on how close you think you are. This leads to inconsistency because emotional highs and lows can interrupt your workflow. Systems remove this emotional volatility. You follow the routine because the routine is the commitment. Results become evidence of your consistency, not your worth. This stabilizes your mindset and preserves your energy, creating a healthier relationship with progress. Another advantage of systems is adaptability. Goals are rigid. They define a specific endpoint. If circumstances change, the goal may no longer fit the situation. Systems are flexible because they are built around behaviors, not outcomes. If your environment shifts, you can adjust your routines without losing your rhythm. This flexibility is crucial in education, careers, relationships, and personal growth. A system can survive change, a goal often cannot. Ultimately, systems create consistent progress because they build identity. When you commit to a system, you reinforce a message about who you are becoming. Someone who shows up, someone who improves, someone who invests in their future. Identity-driven behavior is the strongest form of motivation. You don't write because you want to publish a book. You write because you're a writer. You don't exercise because you want to look a certain way. You exercise because you're a healthy person. Systems shift your focus from achieving an outcome to becoming the kind of person who achieves those outcomes naturally. When you rely on systems, progress is no longer a sprint toward a distant finish line. It becomes the daily rhythm of a life built on consistency, purpose, and steady improvement. Lasting transformation begins with identity because identity shapes the thoughts, decisions, and actions that guide a person's behavior. When individuals set goals, they often focus on external achievements, a desired weight, a specific income, a certain grade, or a measurable milestone. These are all outcomes, but sustainable change does not start at the level of outcomes. It begins at the level of identity. When people shift who they believe they are, their behaviors naturally align with that belief. This is why identity-focused systems create long-term success, while outcome-focused goals often produce temporary results. Identity acts as an internal compass. If someone believes they are disorganized, they will behave in ways that reinforce disorganization, no matter how many goals they set to become more organized. If someone believes they are not athletic, they will sabotage their workout goals because their identity contradicts the behavior required. But when the identity shifts, when a person begins to see themselves as someone who values order or someone who takes their health seriously, their behaviors begin changing almost automatically. Identity drives consistency because humans strive to act in alignment with who they believe they are. Most people, however, reverse the natural order of change. They try to modify outcomes first, hoping that new results will eventually transform their sense of self. They say, once I lose weight, I'll feel like a healthy person, or once I succeed in my job, I'll feel confident. This approach postpones identity until after the achievement, which makes the process fragile. The moment progress slows, their sense of identity collapses and motivation fades. By contrast, when identity is established first, when someone truly sees themselves as a healthy person or a confident professional, the behaviors that support that identity feel natural and sustainable. Systems solidify identity by creating daily proof. Every repeated action is a vote for the type of person an individual is becoming. Someone who writes a few sentences each day casts a vote for being a writer. Someone who practices their instrument daily casts a vote for being a musician. These votes accumulate, and over time, identity becomes not just a belief, but a lived reality reinforced through consistent actions. The more evidence a person gathers for their new identity, the stronger and more stable the transformation becomes. Identity-driven systems also reduce dependence on motivation. People do not need inspiration to behave like themselves. They simply act from their identity. If someone identifies as a disciplined student, studying ceases to be a struggle because it feels like an extension of who they are. If someone identifies as a leader, stepping up in meetings or taking responsibility becomes instinctive. Systems help cultivate this instinct by embedding identity into routines. When a behavior becomes part of a person's identity, it transitions from being an obligation to being a natural expression of self. Another important aspect of identity-driven change is resilience. When setbacks occur, outcome-focused individuals often feel defeated because setbacks threaten the goal. They lose momentum, assume they have failed, and sometimes quit altogether. Identity-driven individuals respond differently. If the identity is "I am a runner," missing one run does not threaten that identity. If the identity is "I am an organized person," a messy day does not change who they are. Because the identity remains intact, the system can continue without emotional disruption. This stability is crucial for long-term consistency, which is the foundation of real improvement. Identity also expands the vision of what is possible. Goals often place limits on achievement because they are defined by a single target. Once the target is reached, the journey ends. Identity has no such limit. A person who identifies as a learner never stops learning. Someone who identifies as creative never stops creating. This self-perception encourages continuous growth because it aligns with a mindset of advancement rather than a finish line. Systems play a key role here by supplying the daily habits that reinforce this ever-expanding identity. Additionally, identity-driven change improves decision-making. When faced with choices, individuals naturally choose the option that aligns with who they believe themselves to be. A person who sees themselves as responsible chooses the responsible action. A person who sees themselves as health-conscious chooses healthier food. These decisions accumulate, shaping a life aligned with that identity. Instead of relying on willpower, individuals rely on clarity about who they are, which makes decision-making smoother and more consistent. The link between identity and systems becomes especially powerful in educational and professional environments. Students who identify as capable learners persist through challenging material because their struggles do not undermine their identity. Professionals who identify as innovators pursue solutions proactively because creativity is tied to their self-perception. These individuals excel not because they chase specific outcomes, but because their identity guides their daily behaviors and attitudes. When identity becomes the foundation, systems become the structure, and consistency becomes the outcome. Identity-driven systems create long-term change by aligning actions with a deeply rooted sense of self. The transformation lasts because it is built from the inside out. Meaningful progress rarely happens through dramatic leaps. It happens through consistent, repeated actions that accumulate quietly in the background. Small actions, when performed regularly, create a compounding effect, similar to how interest grows in a savings account. One small deposit may seem insignificant at first, but repeated deposits made over long periods generate results far greater than the sum of the individual contributions. This principle applies not only to money but to skills, habits, relationships, health, and personal growth. The compounding power of small actions works because frequency amplifies impact. At the heart of compounding is the idea that small actions do not remain small. They multiply. A 5-minute daily practice might not appear transformative, but the repetition reinforces neural pathways in the brain, strengthens habits, and builds momentum. When an action becomes part of a routine, it transitions from something a person does occasionally to something they embody consistently. This consistency is what gives small actions the power to outperform sporadic bursts of effort. Someone who studies for 15 minutes every day will likely outperform someone who studies for 3 hours once a week, not because the total time is different, but because daily repetition solidifies understanding. Small actions are achievable even on difficult days, which is why they are reliable. Large goals often require high motivation. Small actions require only commitment. When individuals design systems based on small, manageable steps, they remove the emotional barrier that often prevents progress. Instead of waiting for the perfect time or the right mood, they do what is within reach. Over time, these small steps accumulate into significant results. A person who reads 2 pages a day reads hundreds of pages a year. A person who saves a small amount of money regularly builds financial stability. A person who practices gratitude for 1 minute a day reshapes their mindset. The scale of the action matters far less than the frequency of the action. Small actions also create identity reinforcement. Every small behavior becomes evidence of who a person is becoming. When someone writes a paragraph each morning, they gather proof that they are a writer. When they meditate for a few minutes daily, they gather proof that they are someone who values mental clarity. This reinforcement strengthens commitment, making long-term consistency easier. As identity strengthens, small actions feel less like tasks and more like natural expressions of character. The compounding effect, therefore, works on both habits and beliefs, creating internal and external transformation. Another reason small actions compound over time is that they reduce resistance. The human brain is designed to avoid discomfort and preserve energy, so large tasks can trigger resistance. Small tasks feel safe and manageable, allowing individuals to bypass procrastination. This creates a positive feedback loops. Small action, small win, increased confidence, more action. Each loop adds another layer of progress. Over months and years, this cycle builds incredibly powerful momentum. The individual who begins with a single push-up, a 2-minute walk, or a brief journaling session may eventually develop routines that once felt impossible. Small actions provide clarity. When individuals engage in small, consistent steps, they learn as they go. They discover what works, what doesn't, what needs adjustment, and what direction feels meaningful. Goals often assume that everything can be predicted in advance, but real progress emerges through iteration. Small actions allow for experimentation without significant risk. A person trying to build a business, for example, can test ideas through small steps, speaking with customers, creating small prototypes, and refining their approach. These small explorations compound into knowledge, confidence, and skill. The compounding effect is also evident in relationships. Small gestures of kindness, daily communication, and simple acts of appreciation build trust and emotional connection. Just as neglect compounds negatively, small positive actions compound positively, strengthening the bond over time. This demonstrates that compounding is not limited to individual habits but influences interpersonal dynamics as well. In learning environments, small actions prove especially powerful. A student who reviews notes for a short period each day develops deeper understanding than one who crams at the last minute. This is because small, frequent exposure enhances retention through spaced repetition, a scientifically supported learning method. Skills such as language acquisition, mathematics, music, and art flourish under this principle. The repetition solidifies memory and improves performance gradually yet effectively. Compounding also teaches patience. Results may not be visible immediately, and this delay often discourages people. However, the nature of compounding is that growth appears slow until it becomes suddenly noticeable. The early stages build a foundation. The later stages reveal the transformation. This teaches the importance of trusting the process even when progress seems invisible. In many ways, compounding rewards those who remain committed even when the results have not yet surfaced. Ultimately, small actions create stability and long-term change because they are repeatable, realistic, and aligned with human psychology. They bypass resistance, build identity, strengthen skills, and produce exponential results through time. The compounding effect is one of the most powerful forces in personal development, proving that consistency is far more impactful than intensity. Relying on systems instead of goals removes the weight of constant performance pressure and replaces it with a sense of direction, stability, and clarity. Goals tend to create an intense focus on the outcome, making every step feel like a test. The mind becomes preoccupied with whether progress is fast enough, visible enough, or successful enough. This pressure often leads to anxiety, procrastination, or burnout. Systems remove that emotional burden by shifting attention from the distant result to the present process. When individuals know exactly what actions to take each day, clarity replaces stress and consistency becomes achievable. One of the most significant ways systems reduce pressure is by eliminating the uncertainty of what should I do next. Goals provide a destination but offer no map. Without a system, people must constantly improvise their approach, which creates mental fatigue. A system breaks the path into manageable, repeatable steps. Instead of having to solve the same problem every day, individuals simply follow the structure they designed. This reduces decision fatigue, allowing more mental energy to be invested in doing the work rather than figuring out how to start. Systems also remove the emotional roller coaster associated with goal chasing. When individuals focus only on outcomes, their emotional state becomes tied to progress markers. A good day feels like victory, a slow day feels like failure. This up and down pattern can destabilize motivation. With systems, the measure of success becomes consistency, not dramatic progress. Showing up to follow the system each day is a win in itself. This steady sense of accomplishment fosters confidence and resilience, creating a healthier, more sustainable mindset. Clarity is another crucial benefit of systems. Clarity emerges when individuals can see a clear process for improvement. Goals often lack this element. They describe where to go, but not how to get there. Without clarity, people waste time experimenting with inconsistent methods, doubting their approach, or comparing themselves to others. Systems solve this by offering a defined process that outlines the exact behaviors required for progress. When the path is clear, momentum builds naturally because the next step is never a mystery. Systems also eliminate the pressure that comes from rigid deadlines. Many goals depend on fixed timelines, which can become sources of stress when progress does not match expectations. Life's unpredictable nature, illness, unexpected responsibilities, or changing circumstances can interrupt plans. When tied to deadlines, such disruptions may cause individuals to feel like failures. Systems allow flexibility because they focus on daily behaviors rather than strict timelines. The individual remains on track even if life temporarily interrupts the routine, reducing guilt and making it easier to start again. Another reason systems reduce pressure is that they remove the obsession with perfection. Goal-oriented individuals often believe that anything less than ideal progress is unacceptable. This creates a perfection mindset. which leads to procrastination or avoidance, because the fear of not performing perfectly becomes paralyzing. Systems shift the emphasis from perfection to repetition. Even imperfect execution is valuable as long as the system is followed. This mindset encourages action instead of avoidance and nurtures progress through continuous practice. Clarity also improves because systems provide measurable indicators of effort rather than indicators of outcome. In a goal-oriented mindset, the measurement is external: grades, weight, revenue, or milestones. These are influenced by many external factors. Systems introduce internal measurement. Did I follow my routine? Did I complete today's action? This allows individuals to evaluate progress through elements they can control. When people measure what they can control, they regain power and reduce anxiety. Additionally, systems increase clarity by revealing patterns. As individuals follow their systems over time, they gather data about what works and what doesn't. This insight becomes a feedback loop for improvement. If a system struggles, adjustments can be made without abandoning the larger purpose. This iterative process is more effective than pursuing rigid goals because it adapts to changing needs, strengths, and circumstances. Systems evolve with the individual, creating an environment where progress is continuously optimized. By reducing pressure, systems also improve decision-making. When individuals are stressed by goal pressure, their decisions often become reactive. They focus on shortcuts, quick wins, or last-minute efforts. These reactive decisions may bring temporary relief but rarely build long-term success. Systems promote proactive decision-making because routines guide behavior. When the system is in place, individuals make decisions based on structure, consistency, and intention rather than panic or emotion. Another powerful aspect of systems is that they create psychological safety. When individuals know they only need to accomplish a manageable action each day, they feel capable and calm. This sense of capability improves creativity, learning, and problem solving. Pressure constricts the mind, clarity opens it. Systems provide that clarity by giving the brain a predictable path, reducing cognitive load and freeing space for more meaningful work. Systems also shift the motivational model from achievement pressure to process satisfaction. Instead of waiting for a distant reward, individuals experience small victories every day by completing their system. This daily reinforcement produces intrinsic motivation, which is far more reliable than motivation tied to external accomplishments. Ultimately, systems reduce pressure and increase clarity because they transform the journey from a stressful pursuit of results into a structured path of steady progress. When individuals rely on systems, they feel grounded, focused, and capable, qualities that make long-term success not only possible but inevitable.